All right, everybody. So we're at 2 right on the dot, and I want to honor your time. My name is Catlin Tucker, and I am leading the session on the flipped classroom. My area of expertise is in blended and online learning. So this is a topic that I enjoy speaking about. If you guys have questions during the presentation, throw them into the chat window. I probably won't get to them till the very end, but I'll make sure we leave a little bit of time. So if I said anything that was unclear or you want more information about, feel free to throw them in the chat window and I'll get there. And then if you are on Twitter and you have questions after today, when you're implementing and it doesn't go how you maybe imagined it would go, you can find me at Catlin_Tucker. I am pretty responsive on Twitter. So if you want some resources, feel free to connect with me there and ask for what you need. Or if Twitter is not your thing, Twitter maybe has been ruined for you personally, you can find me at CatlinTucker.com, post a question or a comment there, and I will get them. It just takes me a little longer to get back to the questions and comments that land on my blog because teachers tend to ask really specific questions, which is great. They just take a minute to craft responses to. So I want to start by establishing what I perceive as the benefits of video. And obviously, we're in this moment together where we're starting online at the beginning of the school year. I would imagine everybody on the call is, and hoping for maybe eventually moving to a blended schedule or a blended learning mode where we see kids part-time in the classroom, part-time online. And then eventually when we can all kind of enter, I'll say quote unquote normal teaching realities of being in the classroom with kids, I'm hoping that this conversation about the flipped classroom is something that you kind of keep in mind, because I think there are a lot of benefits to using the flipped classroom, using video content specifically in the classroom, online, or even if you're blending the two learning environments. So the benefits of video, really the primary benefit is that we put students in control of the pace at which they consume and process information. So students watching a video, they can pause it, they can rewind it, they can watch it 5 times if they need to. They have that opportunity with video as compared to live instruction when you kind of have like one chance to get it. And if you're not paying attention, you're absent, you miss that opportunity. There's also the kind of this benefit, particularly in an online learning scenario where we're creating a repository of resources for students and parents to access anytime, which is really value add, particularly for those parents who are really trying hard to support their learners at home, but may not be exactly sure what's expected of their students. So creating those video resources that can be accessed anytime from anywhere. As a teacher, I will say, I wish I had more patience in my toolbox. I do not. And so if I've explained something 2 or 3 times and then some poor kid needs to hear it again, it is very hard for me to kind of take that deep breath and be like, okay, let's go through this again, right? And sometimes they just need to hear it again. It's not even about explaining it differently. And so it's so freeing not to have to repeat yourself over and over again, but to be able to say, hey, watch this video explanation again. If that's not enough, then we'll dig in, we'll figure out what you need. So for me, it was liberating not to have to repeat myself over and over again. I don't know if you guys see a bit of movement into and out of your classes during the year, but it is also great. I taught English language arts for 15, 16 years. And it was so nice when kids would transfer in like 4 months into the school year, if I had already gone through all of my instruction on, say, how to write an argumentative paragraph. They could access that explanation. I didn't have to figure out, can we meet during lunch? Can we meet at break? Like, when can I support you to kind of catch you up so you're on pace with the rest of the class? There's also this kind of freedom that comes with leveraging video in a physical classroom. I think teachers often feel kind of kind of trapped at the front of the room. They have to explain things, they're orchestrating the lesson, they're providing direction. And so often we don't necessarily have the freedom to move around the room and like tuck in next to small groups of students and really embrace that coaching role that we have as a teacher, helping students to develop specific skills. And I think the more we can kind of lean on video to replicate ourselves in the classroom and provide that on-demand instruction, the more we do get to kind of move around the room and be a little bit more flexible. So there are a variety of ways that we can use video. Obviously, the first one, and the one we're going to talk a bit about today in this session, is to transfer information, right? So if we need to explain something, we can capture it in a video. That might be like a short lecture or a mini lesson of some kind. But particularly in this online learning, blended learning mode, where students are likely to be doing a significant amount of learning on their own independently, capturing our models as well is very helpful for learners of all ages. So if we're demonstrating a process or kind of doing a think aloud as we approach a particular task or attempt to employ a particular strategy, capturing that in a video so that students can watch it, pause it, rewind it, rewatch it is incredibly helpful. So they can kind of mimic what they're seeing as they attempt to apply a new strategy. So even, when I think about whether it is solving a particular kind of problem and surfacing our thinking, our mathematical thinking as we model how to solve it, or, if we're trying to help students to try a new or employ a new reading strategy, let's capture those things in models and make the models available right alongside the instruction videos. Also directions, kind of capturing for students who are working remotely, those step-by-step instructions so that young learners may kind of lean on the video if they don't have really strong reading skills. But quite frankly, even older learners, because I cannot tell you how many times I painstakingly typed up extensive step-by-step, super explicit directions for high school students, had them printed out, they're on a station, kids sit down. I saw them see my directions. And do you know what they do? Miss Tucker, what do we do? I'm like, you know what you do? You read the directions that I spent like 10 minutes typing up. You guys are killing me, So I started recording my directions, and wouldn't you know, students are much more likely to watch a 45-second video of me going through directions than they are to read my half-page step-by-step direction sheet. So using it for directions can be really helpful as well in the classroom if you are having them kind of navigate tasks in small groups, but also in the online environment. The last thing I just want to point out too is that there's a lot I don't know about what's going to happen this year, but there are a few things that I feel pretty confident of, and I'm pretty confident we are going to see a higher number of students in need of remediation. So there were a lot of kids who went online in March, and then they just kind of checked out, right? For whatever reason, access issues in the home environment, but they may be coming back into this school year without having done much academically in the better part of 4 or 5 months. And so how do we lean on video to help to provide support for kids who may be several steps behind the majority of our class? So that's something to just consider as well. So when teachers are thinking about creating their own video content, there are some aspects of creating multimedia that are worth being aware of. So the first is this idea of segmenting and chunking, and really focusing when we're creating a video on introducing small bits of information at a time. So one of the big mistakes I see teachers make when I'm working with them in a coaching capacity is that they try to cover too much ground in their videos, right? And I made this exact mistake early on. I mean, I have like a 15-minute video on how to write an argumentative paragraph. And as I got better at making videos, I felt more confident making videos. And as I was directing students to video content, I realized it was actually much more effective for me to tackle like how to write a strong claim, how to pull strong textual evidence, how to analyze a quote, and actually record each of those various steps separately, because it allowed me, when I was reading through student work, if a student was struggling with a claim or they were struggling with the analysis, I could point them to those shorter videos to support them. So really focusing in on one topic, one bite-sized chunk of information at a time. The next is this idea of signaling and cueing, and really kind of like helping to draw the student's eye to the information that we're presenting when we're presenting it. Weeding does exactly what it sounds like, right? You have you basically eliminating unnecessary information, no unnecessary sounds, no busy backgrounds, no unnecessary visuals. And so that's really important because there's this whole like cognitive load theory where we don't want to unnecessarily burden students cognitively with a bunch of unnecessary stuff in our videos. So just keeping it simple is really important. Matching modality. So, you know, kids are going to be hearing our audio explanations, but what are they seeing? And can we kind of align that auditory verbal channel with that visual kind of pictorial channel, so what they're hearing and what they're seeing go together, and there's a better chance they're going to understand what it is we're trying to communicate. So I get a lot of questions about like the perfect length of video. I don't know if there's necessarily such a thing, but there was a research study done in 2014 of MOOC, which is those massive open online courses that people can just sign up for and take. And the study was trying to figure out, like, is there a sweet spot when it comes to the perfect amount of time, or the kind of a sweet spot in terms of student engagement around video content? And you have to take this with a grain of salt because it's a single study, right? And it's most people who enroll in a MOOC are adult learners. And the level of accountability watching the videos may be kind of something to wonder about, right? But they found that 6 minutes was kind of like the sweet spot in terms of student engagement around video content. And there was a slight dip between 6 and 9 minutes, and then a much more dramatic shift, or a much more dramatic dip around 9 to 12 minutes. So that's something to just keep in mind. It doesn't mean you can't make a video over six minutes, but it's just something to be aware of. Something I've heard a lot about, and I've coached teachers from pre-K all the way through, 12th grade, and worked with high school students for quite a length of time. One of the things I've heard, and I think actually I really believe is kind of spot on, is the rule of thumb that you create 1 minute of video content per year in school. So if I'm working with a 3rd grade teacher and they're making a video, we try to keep it within the 3 to 4 minute range. If I'm working with a 10th grade teacher, we try to keep it around the 10, 11 minute range. So that in observing kids who are interacting with content, video content, I do see that seems pretty appropriate. Sometimes when I've been in a 1st grade classroom and we do 2 minutes of video content, around about minute 30, we definitely get kids kind of starting to spin around and get a little squirrely. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt also, and kind of think about your particular learners. So the first step when I'm working with teachers and they're making kind of like their first videos is to think about creating their content. So there are a bunch of different ways to make videos. There's definitely people who kind of like do like a movie of themselves at a whiteboard talking through solving problems and things, and that's a strategy you can use. But when I'm working with teachers initially, I encourage them to decide on what is that single concept or topic you want to focus on in this video. And then I have them start a Google slide deck or a PowerPoint or some kind of presentation software that they can create their content in. So they can really think through what information do they want to present, what visuals would be helpful complements to that text on the slide. And so for like a math teacher, that's trickier because math on a slide deck is kind of a pain in the butt. It's not possible, but it is a little more challenging. But as a first pass, I think it's really helpful to get your content kind of situated on a slide deck. Think through the information you want to present and limit the text on your slide. So really kind of limit yourself to bullet points if you can, because you will have students who try to copy down every single word on a slide. And if they don't need to, they shouldn't have to, right? So keep it simple. They almost act more like cues for you, those bullet points. And then they also help students understand, like, these are the key words, these are the key points. If you have examples, fantastic. Though in English, a lot of my examples are text-based examples. So I always had to add a verbal cue in my videos to say, this is an example. Don't write this down, right? Like, I don't want you to write down this example topic sentence or this example paragraph. I just want you to hear it, see a model, but don't write it down. The next piece is thinking through media. Can you insert, photographs or images or graphics or charts or maps that might be helpful? And again, kind of aligning that audio track that they're going to be hearing of your explanation with that kind of visual that you've paired with it. So ideally what we're striving for is this very delicate balance of clear and simple, yet visually compelling, right? So it's kind of a tough line to walk in the beginning, but you definitely get better at creating your content as you see what kind of hits and works for kids. The second step, once teachers have their content in a presentation that they can project, right, when they're going to make their videos, we also talk about in kind of using animation strategically. So animating parts of the information on your slide to do some of that signaling and cueing for students, where we're really drawing their eye to specific information and visuals as we're presenting. So for example, you might want to underline key vocabulary words or put boxes around key phrases that you want students to really pay attention to. You might want to, if you have graphics, let's say you have like examples or a map and you want students to look at certain parts of it as you're talking, you might insert arrows that pop up as soon as you're talking about certain parts of the map. So inserting arrows to point to a particular spot in your slide deck so students are looking at an aspect of an image or graphic as you talk about it. The next is also animating bullet points. Instead of just having all your bullet points there, as you're talking through, have the bullet points appear so that kids are focused on the information like as you're talking about it. One of my big pet peeves when I used to do real-time instruction was just like some kids would be like 3 bullet points ahead of me. And I was like, wait a second, I'm still talking about bullet point number 2. Don't race ahead to get it all in your notes. I want you also listening while you're taking notes. So if we animate the bullet points, then that can really be helpful. So as you see here, I'm underlining the word underline, right? This underline is popping up. So if this was a key word and I was talking about it and I wanted to draw students' eyes to it, I would animate it. Then if I want to put a box around something, I can create a box that will appear for students, again, to draw their eye to a specific moment. So for those of you using Google, I just want to kind of share with you like a little tip for how to do this, because often when I'm running trainings or I'm coaching teachers, they haven't really played around with animation that much. So like, let's say you want to animate a line to appear under a word. I think a lot of teachers assume, oh, I'm just going to highlight the word and I'm going to underline it. Like, how do I animate that? You can't animate that. So what you end up doing is, like, if you're working inside of a Google slide deck, there is an actual line that you can click on. And then let's say I want to underline this phrase, insert arrows. So I'm going to put this underline here. It is, not a very exciting line. It's very skinny, it's gray. So I'm going to go up here to this line weight feature. I'm going to make my line fatter. And then I don't want it to be gray. I want it to be something really eye-catching. So I'm going to make it bright pink. And then if I want to animate this bright pink line I've created, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go to insert. I'm going to go all the way down here from insert down to animation. And then you get this like animation window that pops up in your slide deck. And you'll see I have all these different things I've already animated about my different items on this slide. But if I click that arrow or that underline, and then I click add animation, I can decide, do I want it to appear or fade in? I tend to be pretty boring with my animation. I don't have things like fly in from the top or anything. I just have them show up when I want them to show up. Another thing is, let's say this wasn't just like some random Bitmoji of me, but it was a really important graphic. I could insert an arrow, right? And I can manipulate the arrow to point to whatever part of this graphic I might be talking about. And then I can also animate that. So again, inserting animation or just clicking over here and having it show up when I want it to. And then you can kind of go through and play and kind of test drive your animation to see, does it look the way you want it to look if you're going to be presenting. So I want to share with you an example, which I love. I got the pleasure of teaching a 7th grade teacher who was a humanities teacher, and she wanted to do more with video to create space in her classroom so she could conference with kids. So this is a video they were going to watch in class. And the video focuses on this very specific reading informational text standard. So as she's talking students through the standard so they understand why they're watching this video, she's highlighting keywords, she's underlining key phrases, and then she just wanted to review with them the text, this box of text features. Unfortunately, she did not say, don't write this down. So her little 7th graders were like diligently trying to copy every single word on this slide. And what she imagined would be maybe like a 10-minute experience ballooned into like a 25-minute experience because kids were trying to write everything down. So again, it's that reminder of, if you have something in your slides that you don't want them to write down, wonderful. Just make sure you tell them that. So then as she's going through, she has this example of an online text, and she's talking through the text features in this article. And as she references each of the text features, she has an arrow that is labeled that pops up. So the kids are like, oh, okay, they're following her explanation, and they're also being signaled and cued to look at specific parts of this image as she's talking through it. So it's really simple, but it makes a huge difference when we are referencing information if we can use that animation really strategically to draw students' attention to the place where we really want it. So it's a really great example of how to think about animating information on a slide deck so that it pops up when you need it in a video. And then the third step, so 1, create your content, 2, animate, 3, record, right? And if you don't have a recording, like a video recording tool you love, like I can do videos on my computer with the QuickTime program that I have on my Mac. Some teachers love Screencast-O-Matic. That's another one. But usually when I'm coaching teachers and they're just kind of playing around with making their video content, I recommend, if they don't have a video recording kind of tool they love, try Screencastify. Screencastify is a free Google Chrome extension. It does limit you to 5-minute videos, but I'll be honest, I record videos all the time for teachers and students, and I would say 75% of my videos I record with this. So there is once in a while when I'm like, ooh, I need something longer than 5 minutes, but the 5-minute mark does get me questioning, could I break this up? Could this be more than one video? And if the answer is no, then I'll lean on a different tool. But if the answer is yes, then I will break up the content. So what's nice about Screencastify, if you've never used it, again, I'll go out of presenting mode, you can see it up here in the corner of my computer screen, right? It's one of these little Chrome extensions that I've added up here. So it's a kind of a peach colored arrow. And if I click it open, then I get this window. And so I can do 2 different kinds of recordings. I can do a desktop recording, which is just going to record what's on my desktop and my voice, or I can do a webcam recording, which is going to be a recording of myself, which I tend to avoid, honestly, unless I'm doing like a model and they need to physically see me doing something. You can also embed a little webcam. So if I'm recording what's on my screen, I could have like a little box with my face in the corner. I, as a learner, find that very distracting. When I watch videos on YouTube of people doing things, if I'm trying to learn something, and then their little face is like moving around in the corner, I get super distracted. So I don't usually use the embedded webcam. And then what's nice about Screencastify is that if you don't want to publish videos on YouTube, you can set it up so that it'll just save them right into your Google Drive. So then you basically share a link from your Google Drive in Google Classroom or wherever, you know, your learning management system, and students can watch that video. So I really like it. And if you want a tutorial of how to use Screencastify, I think it's really intuitive and user-friendly, but there is, this is a short link. So it is case sensitive, which means the T and the S need to be capitalized, the T in tutorial and the S in Screencastify, but it will give you just a basic walkthrough of how to use it. And then my last little bit of advice as you record is like, do not put pressure on yourself for your videos to be perfect. Like live instruction is rarely perfect. I am often not as like articulate as I would like to be in my imagination. And unless I say something that is actually inaccurate, I try not to re-record. Otherwise I get into this habit of like, oh, that wasn't perfect, I gotta re-record, and it can take forever. And then this isn't a sustainable strategy to use moving forward with students. All right, so that's the video. People always wanna talk about the video, but I'll be really frank, like the magic is not in the video, right? The magic of the flipped learning, flipped classroom model, in my opinion, is all the cool stuff we can do when we don't have to spend our time talking at kids. And so I wanted to spend some time explaining kind of like why I think it's beneficial to pull that video and weave it into a larger learning experience. And so I want to share with you some kind of examples that speak to this idea of weaving video content into a blended lesson. So I usually, when I'm working with teachers, I encourage them to think about their flipped classroom or their flipped learning in 3 discrete parts, right? There's the pre-video activity, there's the video, which I call flip and engage because you're flipping your instruction, and then you have the post-video activity. So what is it that we're going to do before this video to create some context for the video kids are going to watch, right? Can we pique their interest? Maybe we want to use it as an opportunity to assess prior knowledge. Like, we know every kid doesn't start in the same place, so how do we figure out where they're starting from? Or maybe we want to drive inquiry. We want to get them asking questions about a topic or capturing their wonderings about something. Then the part that includes the video is obviously this second part, which I always refer to as like flipping and engaging, right? We're going to transfer information and make it available in a video, but is there also an opportunity to drive some higher order thinking or some deeper thinking about the content in this video? Can we engage kids around the video content so they're not just passively consuming this explanation that we've captured in a video? And then the post-video activity is really when we think about how do we get kids extending and applying what they learned in the video. Now, in a normal circumstance, like before COVID, I always really encourage teachers to think about how can we make this student-centered? How can we get kids using each other as resources? And obviously we need to think a little differently about that, especially when we come back into a classroom that might be socially distanced. But I would still like to see conversations and collaboration happening around the video content as students kind of extend and apply. So when I'm working with teachers, we'll often create their flipped learning or flipped classroom lessons, this 3-part progression using this template. So if anybody's like looking for a structure to think about this 3-part flip, this will take you to a Google Doc. And as long as you're signed into your Gmail, you can go to File and make a copy and then just kind of reference it as your lesson planning. So I want to share with you a couple of examples from my own work with students where we're following this 3-part progression, just in case it helps to kind of spark ideas for you. I know there's probably a wide range of grade levels and subject areas represented, but I want to just kind of talk through what this progression can look like. And so if we were in a classroom, socially distant or otherwise, you can actually move through all 3 parts of this flip in a physical classroom, or you can do all 3 parts online if we're in a virtual learning mode, which we'll talk about as well. So the idea with a whole group rotation is that students rotate between offline, online, offline activities, right? This is actually a modern spin on the classic lab rotation, which was one of the early blended learning models that described students moving from a physical classroom for offline learning to a computer lab for online learning. But more and more we're seeing one-to-one initiatives or Chromebook carts in classrooms, and so students don't necessarily have to leave a physical space to get online. They can literally rotate between online, offline, offline activities. So I'll start with vocabulary, because this is actually where my own flipped classroom journey began. I remember 10 or maybe even more years ago now, I was hearing about the flipped classroom. I was intrigued, but you did not hear about English teachers flipping their classroom. You heard about math teachers and science teachers flipping their classroom. So the very first question I asked myself was, what do you spend the most time talking at your kids about? And the answer for me was vocabulary. Every week and a half, I would roll my transparency machine to the front of the room. I would have them a little plastic piece of paper with the word, part of speech, definition, and I would march through our new list of vocabulary words. And I knew I was not pacing it perfectly for everyone, right? And you know how I knew? Because they would straight up heckle me in the classroom, right? Miss Tucker, you're going too fast. Miss Tucker, I'm 4 words behind. Slow down. It's like, okay. And then you have the kid in the front row who was like, oh my gosh, let's go, like pick it up. So for me, I was like, what is the value of me standing up here going over this list for them live, right? If they're behind 4 words, they're not even really hearing the explanation. Maybe they're racing to catch up. They could be misspelling these words. So I figured I'm going to make a video. But I wanted to couch this video in a 3-part progression. So the first thing that students would do is engage, and obviously in a socially distant situation, we'd all have to spread out, everybody'd need their own piece of paper, but they have a sheet of paper with all of their words used in context. The only way they know what their new vocabulary is that those words are underlined. So in this moment, before seeing the video, they have to work collaboratively and engage in conversations to figure out, what do we think these words mean based on how they're used. So let's use the context clues to make predictions about these unknown words. Then we have the flip and engage, where kids are watching the video, they're self-pacing through it, they get to pause it, rewind it. It's really important to create a buffer of time around the video if you're using video in the classroom. So if I am asking my students to watch a 10-minute video, then I want to give them 20 minutes. If I'm asking them to watch a 5-minute video, I'm going to give them 10 minutes. Like, I want that buffer of time so they can pause a video, rewind it, watch it a couple of times if they need to. And then the engage piece is, once you've watched the video, I want you to engage in a conversation where you try to use at least 10 of the 15 words to write a short narrative, and go ahead and post it to our learning management system so other people can read your narrative, respond, compliment strong word usage, give you some tips for improving your story, ask you questions. And then the third part is that practice and play, or that, extend and apply. And how do we get them working with the vocabulary? So even just adapting kind of like fun games where kids have to use the words in conversation with one another. Once I made all my vocabulary videos, I kind of was like, all right, what's next? And so the second question that I asked myself was, what do you spend the most time reteaching or like re-explaining? And for me, the answer was hands down writing instruction, right? Like, the first time we would write an essay, the first 6 weeks of school, I would go over like, here's a thesis statement, here's what needs to go in a thesis statement, here's where your thesis statement needs to live in your introduction, and then they would write thesis statements, obviously, as part of their essay. Flash forward 6 weeks, we would be writing our second formal piece of writing, and the phrase thesis statement would come out of my mouth, and half of the class looked at me like, it sounds so familiar, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we already did this, and now I got to go over it again. And again, this is where not having to repeat yourself over and over is really, really helpful. But if a kid needs to hear it again, they have the video, they can absolutely watch the video. So you might start as that pre-activity by assessing prior knowledge, asking students, okay, here's a prompt. I want you to tell me what needs to go in a thesis statement and what you would write to create your thesis statement, and just see what kids can do. Just kind of figure out where are they starting from. Then we have that flip and engage. And one of the tools I really love to create engagement around a video is Edpuzzle. I also know a lot of teachers are using, it's called Play Post-it. So Edpuzzle, Play Post-it, if you've heard of either one of them, they're both options worth considering. But the idea is you have video content and then you're wrapping it in an engagement. And this really speaks to also having kind of a higher level of accountability, because you can see who watched the video. So if I'm in Edpuzzle, I can either grab a video that's there, like, so for example, let me just back this up. Here, I could do a keyword search and see, ooh, is there a great video on mitosis or meiosis, right? If I'm a science teacher. Or if you're like me and you like creating your own content, you get into making videos, you can pull your own video content into the Edpuzzle environment. So this is just like my video on how to write a thesis statement. And then you'll see you have these different tools at your disposal. So you can actually trim a video. So if you're using somebody else's video or you found a great video on YouTube you want to use, you can actually decide when that video starts and when that video ends. You don't have to show the whole thing, which is kind of nice. And then it also, if you're like me and you, it takes you like a good 4 seconds to figure out at the beginning of the video how to project your presentation, and there's just some dead time, you can just trim that right off, which is kind of nice. Then once you're in the Edpuzzle environment and you've trimmed your video if you need to, then you can actually drop questions into your video. So you can drop multiple choice questions just to like check for understanding, open-ended questions. So at the end of this video on thesis statements, I present an example prompt and then I ask students, okay, based on what you just saw in this video, write me a thesis statement. Just to see, I'm gonna collect some formative assessment data, like how effective was this video in communicating what you need to include in a thesis statement. And you can also drop audio notes or text notes into the video. So if you are using somebody else's video and you're like, ooh, that's not how I explained it, I need to clarify. Or sometimes I will record a video and then I'll use a word, and when I'm watching my video back, I'm like, oh, my EL, my second language learners aren't gonna know what that word means. Like, why did you use that word? So instead of re-recording, I'll just drop a little audio comment and just say, this word means this, to just clarify and make it a little bit more accessible for the kids who are watching it. So it's really nice to kind of insert these different questions into the video to get kids thinking about and engaging with the information as they're watching, instead of just sitting there and kind of like taking notes but tuning out. And then, like I said, on the teacher side, you can see the student responses, you can kind of see who watched the video and kind of track who's doing the assignments, which is really helpful. And then in the classroom, you can create these kind of follow-up activities. So one of the things that we do to practice and play with thesis statements is called thesis statement throwdown, where I would literally project like a prompt, or I would write an essay prompt on the board. I would ask small groups of students to spend kind of 5 minutes just working collaboratively to construct a thesis statement together, where they could kind of lean on each other, ask each other questions. And then 2 groups would go head to head in the thesis statement throwdown. So one group would write their thesis statement on one wall or one whiteboard, and one would do it on the other. And then basically when they were done, I would go and do a think aloud, kind of editing their thesis statements so they could hear what I was thinking as I was editing it. Like, oh, you left out the author's name, or, oh, you didn't use parallelism, so these 3 points are a little bit wonky. This is how I would rewrite it. And you use the word thing. I hate the word thing. Let's use a better word. And so they could just hear like what was strong about each one and what needed to be improved. And then it was shocking how fast their thesis statements got really, really good. And so then I was like, okay, well, what else do they struggle with? Well, they really struggle with topic sentences. Let's topic sentence throwdown. And they really struggle to analyze quotes. So let's do an analytical quote throwdown. So it's one of those formats that worked really well. And in coaching teachers during COVID, I had some English teachers even pulling this routine into video conferencing, where the groups would go into breakout rooms and they would have 5 minutes to construct their thesis statement. They would post it on a shared Padlet wall, and Padlet is just like a virtual Post-it note board. And then the teacher would bring them all together. She'd select 2, she would do her think aloud, and they would talk about it. And it was actually so fun to watch this happen in a virtual session, because so many teachers are really struggling to like, how do I get kids to engage in virtual conferencing? How do I make those sessions interactive and engaging and worthwhile for kids to attend? So lots of ways to think about adapting some of this for this online reality that we're in right now. So I just published this week a blog, or maybe it was actually the end of last week, a blog on thinking about kind of a flipped learning flow for blended and online courses. And so this short link at the bottom, bit.ly/flipped flow, all lowercase, will take you to that blog post. And basically what it does is just brainstorm with teachers, like, okay, if you are doing kind of a flipped learning, you're using video, how can we think about that pre-video activity if kids are entirely online? And how do we think about that post-video activity if you're entirely online? And so I call out specific tools and strategies that you guys might want to think about so that you are kind of not just throwing video at kids because we're online and they really need to hear instruction, but we're really weaving that video into a more complete learning experience for students so that hopefully the video is more effective and students are learning more, and we have more opportunities to collect that really valuable formative assessment data about where kids are at in terms of their progress and their learning. Another thing I just want to mention as we talk about a new strategy that teachers might be employing this year is to think about how we're going to learn from our students about how effective this strategy is. You know, our use of videos, our ability to weave that video content into a larger learning experience. So one of the things I encourage teachers to do is open up a feedback loop from students to the teacher. Honestly, so many teachers are in a totally unfamiliar learning landscape when we talk about online learning or even blended learning, quite frankly. And so the best way for us to continue learning as educators in this moment about what works and what doesn't work is to ask our students, right? They are the consumers. They are consuming what we dish out. And it only makes sense to check in with them on a regular basis about what's working and what's not working so that I can continue learning as your teacher and making adjustments and improvements to this learning experience for you. It's also really helpful in relationship building with kids. Kids appreciate it when a teacher asks for their feedback, for their perspective about their experience. And so when I'm working with teachers, we'll build in just like a simple check-in form. And this can be a parent-child activity or a caregiver-child activity at the end of the week or every other week. Or if your kids have robust kind of keyboarding skills, maybe it's just something that they're doing. But asking them about, like, what's going well? Choose one thing that is working for you right now online or in this blended class. What's challenging? Like, what's one thing that's not working for you that's you're really struggling with, and identify that. And then asking about specific strategies. So if we have, if we're using video conferencing with kids, what are they thinking about video conferencing? Do they think those sessions are engaging? Do they have any recommendations for things they'd like to see changed or added to those sessions? If we're making video, how effective are those videos, right? Before we invest all this time making a boatload of videos, let's figure out if they're working for kids and how kids are feeling about them. And then also kind of asking questions, you might want to ask, have kids been to office hours? Yes or no? If not, why not? What's been your favorite activity or assignment online? Like, if I know you loved it, let's try to do more like it. What's been your least favorite activity and lesson online? And, maybe we need to tweak that, or maybe I need to drop that strategy depending on why kids aren't enjoying it. So I know it's not most teachers' favorite thing to ask for feedback because kids are so honest, brutally honest, and we're like busting our butts to try to give them the best experience possible. And then they might tell us all the things they don't like, and it's hard not to take that personally. But in my own research, the link between student feedback and teacher learning could not be more clear. So it's really, I think it's an important part of our practice. And even in my own experience, I remember very early on, I was flipping my classroom, and each semester I had a really extensive Google form, and it kind of acted like our end of the semester exit ticket, where I just wanted kids to tell me what was working, what was not working, what they liked, what they didn't like, and I would ask about specific strategies. And I remember very early on asking them, do you prefer watching videos at home to in-class lecture? 97.5% of my kids said yes, which should have made me wildly happy. But as a perfectionist, I was totally fixated on that little slice of red, right? These 3 kids who said, nope, don't like it. And one of the students, after he said no, I had kind of like an optional, if you said no, please explain why. And in it, he said, and I quote, I wish you'd just give us a packet. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the packet is everything I'm trying to get away from in education. So I couldn't help myself. The next time I see him, start of second semester. So we've been in school together for like 4 months. I sidle up to this kid and I'm like, so I see you weren't enjoying the videos and you would prefer a packet. Can you like tell me a little bit more about that? And he got visibly angry, like his little shoulders like went up to his ears. And he said to me, you know, you assign all these videos and I go home and my computer's really old and it just spins and spins and I've never even seen one of your videos. And I was like, oh man, like we're 4 months into the school year. Why am I just asking this question right now? Like, I said to him, okay, well, I had written like, I think 5 donors choose projects or something at that point. And I had these Chromebook carts in my classroom. And I said, hey, the next time I assign a video, why don't you come check out a Chromebook? You know, internet's not the issue. It's just the age of your device. Borrow it and see what you think. And his shoulders went down and his whole body language changed. And he kind of looked at me in disbelief and he was like, you'd let me use one of your Chromebooks? And I was like, they're our Chromebooks and you're more than welcome to use one. So the next time I assign a video, he came, he checks out a Chromebook, takes it home, brought it back at the beginning of the school day, the next day, 2 periods before I was supposed to see him. And I was like, so how'd it go? And he goes, oh yeah, the videos are way better. So I was like, well, I'm glad I asked, right? And so I was like 1 down and I checked in with the other 2 students and was able to problem solve with them. And it really had nothing to do with the strategy. It had to do with home environment. Like one student was at a mom's house part-time, a dad's house part-time. And at the mom, she didn't have a device or internet connection that was reliable. So she just got stressed out. So I think it's a really important lesson to just really think about, are we checking in with kids? Are we making sure what we're doing really works for them? And then I can't not talk about station rotation, since that's a strategy I use with teachers all the time. And so a lot of teachers like to kind of pull together the station rotation with the flipped classroom. So if they're planning a station rotation, which is a blended learning model that combines online stations and offline stations, then often teachers will create an online station that is a video lesson. And that works really beautifully. However, if teachers want students to apply and practice what they learned in the video during a station rotation, they have to plan just a little bit differently. So what ends up happening is, if I'm a teacher who typically plans for 4 stations in a station rotation, then I'm going to want to add an additional 5th station if I want kids to both watch a video and apply and practice. So the reason I have an extra station is 1 station will remain empty for each rotation. So on rotation 1, I'll have students at station 1, students at station 2, 3, and 4, 4 being the flipped station where they're going to watch the video. Nobody will start at station 5. That will stay empty on the first rotation because nobody's seen the video. Then when we rotate, we have the second, we rotate the second time, then the students from station 1 go to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and the kids who just watched the video, then they go to station 5 to practice and apply. And once there are kids at station 5, and now there'll be nobody at station 1, right? That's where I kind of couch myself or encourage the teachers I'm working with to spend time, is right around that station 5. So the kids are hitting a bump, they need to be scooped into additional explanations, they need more scaffolds. We are right there to support that process as the subject area expert. I'm a big fan of kind of letting kids sit in the struggle a little bit and lean on each other first. But if they really get stuck, obviously I want to be a resource, because the video is not going to be enough for all students, right? Some kids are going to need additional explanations, need to go through additional models, need additional scaffolds. All right, so for anybody who's dying to kind of pick up a book and learn about blended learning, I have a bunch of them. The blue book is Blended Learning in Action, and that's if you're looking for a place to start, you want to kind of wrap your mind around this whole idea of blending online and offline learning. That blue book is probably the best place to start. If you've been kind of on a blended learning journey for a while and you're looking to take it to the next level and really think about, in this moment when kids need to develop self-regulation skills, they need to be invested in their learning online, how do we partner with them? My new book, the yellow one, is probably the best one. And if we have any coaches on the call who are supporting teachers, instructional coaches, the green book is a book I wrote based on my own experience as a blended learning coach to kind of support coaches and leaders as they think about how to help their teachers make this transition. So I saw a ton of comments popping up in the chat window. So let me open that. If you have a burning question you want to ask, you can absolutely go ahead and throw it in there. Yeah, so Wesley was asking about the platform I use. I do like Screencastify. I know the 5-minute limit is kind of a bummer. If you want more, I think Screencast-O-Matic, the free version, you'll have a watermark, I'm pretty sure, on your videos, which may or may not matter. I think Screencast-O-Matic allows you 10, maybe 15 minutes of video content for free. You have to find a place to host it, or you gotta, drag it into Google Drive to share it. So a lot of people who use Screencast-O-Matic often export to YouTube and share the link from there. Depending on a school filter, that could be problematic. It just depends. And then, like I said, I have a Mac, so I don't know what kind of computer you're using, but I have QuickTime on my Mac, and QuickTime, it was on my Mac when I got it, and I can record videos there, and I can either save them on my computer and upload them into Google Drive, or I can export them to YouTube. Loom is very popular, so that's one definitely to check out. Let's see, let me just scroll through. Yeah, Jen is pointing out that animations on slides can definitely help with math. That's super true. Yeah, Melissa, I have worked with teachers who use Powtoons video, mostly elementary teachers who are wanting to kind of like up the ante in terms of like entertainment, but Powtoons can be kind of fun to work with. Yes, I am presenting right now from a Google slide deck, Wesley, if that was what you were asking. I like Google Slides. I mean, I have a boatload of keynotes on my computer, but they just take up so much room on my hard drive that I started creating Google Slides. Let's see. Oh, Tara's saying, yep, QuickTime. How long does it take you to make a video? Maggie's asking me. Well, Maggie, in the beginning, I thought my videos had to be perfect, and it took me a very long time. Then I kind of realized I'm not perfect, and my videos don't have to be perfect, and then they were much quicker. So now when I make a video, it's like a one and done. It doesn't take me very long. The recording part, depending on the complexity of the presentation, a video could take me like from beginning to end, maybe anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, depending, like I said, on how many slides. But I do try to keep it really focused. So my slide decks aren't usually very long. So it doesn't take a ton of time. And I think it's one of those things you just get better at. You like start thinking through, what are kids going to need to know? Yeah, if kids don't watch the video at home, Tara, there's a couple of different things you can do. So whatever the extend and apply activity is, as other kids are engaging in that review and practice, you can have students who didn't watch the video and then ask them to make up whatever that review of practice is on their own. But then they kind of miss out on that, the benefit of working with a group of students potentially, or having access to peers as they work. So it's kind of a bummer. Usually when I would have kids come to class and they hadn't watched the video, I'm obviously secondary, though when I'm coaching teachers, we will have kids communicate with their parents via audio messages and send those as well. But I would tell students, okay, I can see from Edpuzzle you didn't watch the video. The first thing you need to do is write your parent an email, CC me, and just explain, hey, I was supposed to watch this video. I didn't watch it. Right now in class, I'm watching it, and I'm missing out on this activity, which I'm going to have to do tonight for homework. So we're all on the same page, right? I have, as a full-time teacher, I had like 160 students. I cannot be the person communicating with parents all the time about students not doing work. I need them to own that conversation. And then they would watch the video, they would self-pace through it. But if they missed the practice and application, then that rolls over, and that's for homework. And a lot of students, like, they don't want that to roll over into homework. And so I had a lot of kids who, they missed a couple of videos, and then they had that happen, and it didn't take very long where they were like, okay, I'm just gonna watch this video at home. And I had kids that would scramble into my classroom during break or lunch and be like, can I borrow one of the Chromebooks and watch the video? The bus for soccer got in really late last night. And so there was definitely like an incentive for them to do it. Maggie's asking, do you do your pre-video work on one day, then the video for work? It depends, Maggie. So when I first started using the flipped classroom, I actually sent video content home a lot with kids. So on, like, let's say, I'll just use a Monday example. So like on a Monday, we would do that pre-video activity, pique their interest. That night for homework, they would watch the video for homework. And then the next time I saw them, we would do practice and apply. And that worked really well. The longer I'm in education, the less of a fan I am of like assigning a bunch of homework, if I'm being honest. So then I started kind of pulling video content into the classroom, and in a 90-minute block period, if I was lucky enough to have a Chromebook cart, then we could rotate through the 3 parts together. And as kids were self-pacing through the video, I could kind of lend some individual support to kids who needed it, or pull kids into like a live explanation who might struggle with the video. So it just kind of depends whether you're going to do it, you know, in class, at home, in class, or all 3 parts in class, or if it's all 3 parts are happening online. Do you reuse your video? Yes, I do, Chelsea. This is the magic of video. So it took me forever to create my 30 vocabulary videos that I made for kids. It was over the course of 2 years I made, because we had an A-B schedule at Windsor, or an A year and a B year. And so it took me a long time, but oh my gosh, that year when you get to reuse the videos and it's just like, boom, here you go. It's magical. It is a magical moment. So yeah, and I have heard, Veronica, of Flocabulary. A couple of the teachers I've coached have used it and really like it. Let's see, anything else? All right, that looks like all the questions. Good to see you in the group, Kelly Daly. And if you guys have other questions, you're welcome to stick around and ask. We've got 4 minutes, so I'll hang out and answer them. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will be sending you all kinds of good energy as you prepare for this, what will be a very interesting school year. You're welcome, Maggie. Thanks for coming, Sarah. Bye, Vicki. You're welcome, Joni. Oh, good. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. That's wonderful. I'm thrilled to hear it. Oh, good. I'm not sure. I think Lara probably. I'm so glad. I know right now everybody just needs like things they can use that are tangible and concrete. So I'm glad it was worthwhile. Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Aw, thanks, Helen. I appreciate the positive feedback. It's always a pleasure to get to work with Sonoma County teachers. So I hope you guys are able to kind of tackle this here. I know you will, but I know it's daunting in this moment.
Hey, Catlin, thank you so much.
Hey, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. That was great. Obviously, the feedback's very positive, but yeah, I was able to be there for most of that session, and it was great. Lots of information. Lots of requests for the slides. Are you able to add those to that resource folder and/or send them to me, and I can put it in the resource folder?
Sure. I got the email. I've just been so swamped.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. A couple people private chatted me, and I just said, oh, and some folks like to put their slides in afterwards anyway. But yeah, I can do it for you, or if it's easier, or if you just want to do it right, okay. Put them right into the folder. Either way is fine.
Yeah, let me give it a go. If I have a problem or a challenge, I'll send them your way.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Angie.
Thanks, Catlin. Juliana wanted to say hi before you got off. Juliana
Aw.
Karstensen. Oh, my favorite teacher.
So funny. I've been texting with Shannon Bell, who is my like student from forever ago, who I saw at an event, and like she was like, Miss Tucker, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so old right now. She's, like teaching in Santa Rosa, and she's scrambling like everybody else, and so we've been like regularly.
Oh my God, that's so cute. Well, Alex too said, because I was like, oh my God, Miss Tucker's on, and he's all, Mom.
I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, Andy Duplicki's going to be my moderator. I was like, oh, Alex.
Oh, Alex.
Oh, Alex. That's
Yeah.
so funny. But that feels like forever ago.
Yeah,
It's
it
bananas.
was. Yep.
Well, tell him I said hello.
I sure will.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.